Reborn in 1979. While others used their foreknowledge to speculate and profiteer, I relied on a bizarre spell for commanding beasts and controlling birds. Control rats? Too low class. Control wild boars? Too much trouble. It wasn't until I discovered the cormorants that flew in during winter that I understood what a dimensionality reduction strike really was. While others cast nets to catch fish, I blew a whistle and had birds catch them for me. 30 yuan a day, and after half a month my savings topped 200. Just when I thought better days were coming, I walked in the door and saw Granny Shuhe sitting right in front of my mother. Attention educated youths sent down to the countryside. Families with educated youths, and all educated youth stations, listen up. The commune's educated youth office has issued a notice. Educated youth sent to the countryside who meet the requirements may now apply at the commune's educated youth office to return to the city. The loudspeaker of Shuhe Brigade suddenly blared, startling me out of my daze as I stared at the rotten planks in the roof. Educated youths returning home. So this really was 1979. I, Li Shuhe, someone who grew up under the red flag and had always scoffed at all that gods and ghosts nonsense, had actually been reborn. And just like that, I was reborn into 1979. Sigh, if I can't figure it out, I won't bother thinking about it. Since things are already like this, I have to keep living no matter what. And besides, I've got to cheat now. Just now, in my hazy state, I seemed to see an image, a tall figure in ancient clothing, riding a gigantic black leopard. With an eagle several meters across soaring above his head, a clever golden-yellow mouse perched on his shoulder, and a jade-green snake coiled around his arm. Beside him, dozens of wolves sprinted under the lead of a giant white wolf, while over 100 apes clambered forward through the surrounding trees. The image slowly turned into 4 large golden characters, commanding beasts and controlling birds, which followed my gaze and shot straight into my eyes. From then on, an extra layer of vision appeared before me. There were no houses, no trees, no people there, only all kinds of animals. The rats and cockroaches in the house, the mosquitoes and midges flying in the sky, the chickens and pigs raised by Li Xiuqing's family next door. Instinctively, I felt that I could command them. Get out. I tried ordering a black rat hiding in a rat hole in the room. The rat, skinny to the extreme, stayed in its nest and looked around with black bean-like eyes. Then with a whoosh darted out of the hole and quickly slipped out through the crack in the door. It actually worked. I sat bolt upright, my eyes shining. So this was the art of commanding beasts and controlling birds? What a stroke of fortune. Anyway, in my previous life I was already old and hadn't achieved much, and my daughter was already married with children. Getting to live it all over again wasn't such a bad thing. I fully accepted reality and quickly threw myself into developing this commanding beasts and controlling birds ability. Before long, I discovered that at my current level, I couldn't successfully command all animals. Some especially small and relatively dim-witted ones, like rats and chickens, were easier to control. Larger livestock like pigs and cattle were much more difficult. I was having a great time experimenting when, early the next morning, Li Xiuqing's household erupted into chaos with chickens flapping everywhere and eggs getting smashed. Even through the broken rammed earth wall between us, I could hear Li Xiuqing shouting in her booming voice. These chickens have gone crazy. Wang Deshang, come quick and see if a weasel got into the house. Wang Deshang was her man. He came clattering out in his cloth shoes, letting out a huge yawn. What? Bitten a few to death? Li Xiuqing counted off 1, 2, 3, 4. Not one missing out of the 4. If none are missing, what are you yelling for? If a weasel had really gotten into the coop, how could not a single one be dead? It's so early, and you're louder than the loudspeaker. Seeing that no chickens were missing, Li Xiuqing relaxed and started talking about what the loudspeaker had said. Hey, do you think Jean Mei from Wang Long's family will return to the city? After that their voices got lower and lower, and I couldn't hear them anymore. But it stirred up my memory. Zhao Jean Mei was an educated youth who had been sent down here more than 10 years ago. Within a few years, she married Wang Long, a retired soldier, and gave birth to a daughter and a son. If she were to return to the city, the memories in my mind about this era came flooding out like water released from a floodgate. I was born in 1960, and I'm 19 this year, with a 4th grade education, meaning I only studied up to 4th grade, because in 70 the village primary school was shut down, so I went home to cut pig fodder and gather firewood, running wild and fooling around in the fields. For this, I got beaten and scolded by my grandma every day. Grandma? I looked up and glanced around again. Did we move back to the old house? Had the family already split up? Damn, The family split was a deeply significant event in my family. My own memory of it at the time isn't very strong, but my mother seemed to hold a grudge about it her whole life, often telling us siblings that the family division had been unfair. It really was unfair. Not to mention the brick and tile new house that the whole family had built through great hardship. Not even half a room was given to my father, Lee Daeong. As for the rest of the money, grain, household items, and the chickens they raised, basically none of it came to us either. When we moved into these two shabby yellow mud houses, aside from bringing our own bedding and clothes, along with the bowls and chopsticks we used for meals, and some of my mother Lin Yunfang's dowry thermos bottles, wash basins, and such, we had nothing else. In this era, women in Shuhe Brigade had little say in matters like family division. After Lin Yunfang recovered from her illness, no amount of protesting could change anything. But from then on, until the two elders both passed away, Lin Yunfang never again set foot in their house. And in the end, she didn't even wear mourning for them, which was considered quite a notable story in Shuhe Brigade. I pulled my thoughts back and looked at this dilapidated mud brick house, then shook my head. This place is uninhabitable. In my previous life, our family of 5 lived in these 2 yellow mud houses for a full 5 years, before we finally scraped together enough money to build 2 new rooms. Those 5 years truly were nightmare years. In winter, the wind always leaked through, bitterly cold. On rainy days it was even worse. When it poured outside, it drizzled inside. The rat holes could never all be plugged, and that moldy stink in the house had practically seeped into my memory. I made my first resolution after being reborn move. But in those days, if you wanted to build a new brick and tile house, 1 room would cost at least 600 yuan, and 3 rooms would be 1,800 yuan. Add in all the miscellaneous expenses, and 2,000 yuan wouldn't be enough. Shuhe Brigade had few sidelines, and work points paid poorly. Even a strong laborer could only earn 40 or 50 yuan a year. If not for the household responsibility system starting next year, and my father working himself to the bone, it would have been impossible for him to save enough money for a new house. Building a new house wasn't something that could be done in a day or 2, but moving was something the sooner the better. But first I had to get some money before I could even talk about renting a place. It wasn't easy to do anything with things in the village, so maybe I should go up the mountain and take a look? But I quickly discovered that this beast gathering and bird commanding technique could only drive animals when there was no subjective ill intent toward them. Having them voluntarily go to their deaths, that wouldn't work. Sigh. I'll have to carefully figure out how to use it. I rubbed my head a few times. It ached a little, a sort of painful feeling like my brain was growing. By the end of November, the rice had all been harvested and stored away, and the winter wheat had also been sown. So the commune members of Shuhe Brigade had entered a relatively slack period of the year. At the Lee family's dinner table, each person had a bowl of thin sweet potato porridge. My father and I each had half a coarse mixed grain bun, while Lin Yunfang, Li Shumi, and Li Shuping did not. I looked at my mother. Though worn down by toil, she was only in her early 40s and looked far younger than in my memory. Her expression was bad, but it wasn't aimed at her son. Ever since the family split, her expression had never been good. What are you looking at? Not full. There's still a little porridge left in the pot. Shall I ladle you some more? I gulped down the last of the soup in my bowl and shook my head. You eat. I don't want any. I just wanted to tell you that I'm planning to go take a look around the Great River Shoal today. Go to the Great River Shoal? Lin Yunfang froze for a moment. What for? The Great River Shoal was a vast lake wetland formed where the Zhang River flowed through the area. Unlike the big wetland parks of later times, it was still just a mess of muddy ponds and lakes. And unless you could find a truly solid path, ordinary people simply didn't dare go in, or you'd sink in if you weren't careful. Since I'm idle anyway, I'll go see if I can get something. Fish or soft-shelled turtles, or whatever. If I can trade them for money later, we can buy a few things. If not, I can at least trade them for some cornmeal, so we can at least fill our stomachs. When Lin Yunfang heard this, she couldn't help glancing at her man. It was obviously not a tender glance, but one full of flashing blades. Li Daeong didn't even need to look to know what was going on. He drained his porridge and washed down the choke-inducing mixed grain steamed bun. You don't need to worry about the grain. I'll go borrow some later. Lin Yunfang let out a cold laugh. Where are you going to borrow it from? Even your own father and mother knew to wait until the autumn grain was distributed and sold off to pay the debts before kicking you out. Do you think unrelated families can squeeze out any rations to lend you? Li Daeong's voice was muffled. You don't need to worry about it. I won't let you starve to death. Seeing that they were about to start arguing, I quickly cut in. I heard quite a few people go get fish in winter, so I'll go see first how they do it. Li Daeong shook his head. How could it be that easy? Do you know where the fish are? Do you know how to cast a net? Don't end up stepping into an ice hole before the ice has frozen solid. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him and replied perfunctorily, got it. Then I'll just go take a look first. I was already 19, considered fully grown in the village, so my parents wouldn't insist on stopping me over something like this. Lin Yunfang still warned me, watch your step and walk where others have already stepped. In a bit, have Mei go get your dad's rain boots for you. Were those? Li Shumi was 13 this year, malnourished and looking sallow and skinny. She finished the last sip of her sweet potato porridge almost reverently, then immediately stood up to clear the bowls and chopsticks, looking at me as she did. Second brother, don't fall into the water. You're underestimating your brother, aren't you? Your brother climbs trees and goes into rivers every day. It's all revolutionary training. Now it's time to reap the fruits of the revolution. While I scared little brother Li Shuping so he wouldn't follow me, I went to change into the rain boots. This pair of black rubber shoes had been bought before Li Shuping was born, and the uppers had already turned gray. After changing shoes, I found a back basket, stuffed a urea sack into it, and headed out the door. The Great River Shoal was big enough, and taking a shortcut, I got into the river shoal in a little over half an hour. In early winter, the Great River Shoal was desolate and quiet, with the reeds withered and faded. The wild geese and mallards that were so abundant in spring and summer had all flown south for the winter. But of course I had a reason for coming all this way. Although it was cold here, compared with farther north, it still counted as warmer. Every year around this time, large numbers of cormorants flew to the Great River Shoal to spend the winter. They were exactly what I was looking for. With my current level of the beast gathering and bird commanding spell, I could only control some birds and fish for the time being, and the range was very limited too. So I set my sights on these fisherman birds. After searching around for another half hour or so, I finally found a suitable reed marsh. And as far as the eye could see, dozens of cormorants were leisurely preening themselves in the sunlight, while beneath the water's surface, all kinds of fish swam back and forth. It was my first time using the beast gathering and bird commanding technique, and I was extremely nervous. With a thought, nearly 20 cormorants suddenly spread their wings and rose together, breaking through the clear lake's surface again and diving into the water. In my special field of vision, I could see the cormorants, and I could also see the fish. Cormorants don't catch something every time. Sometimes if they miss or make an empty dive, they have to come back up to breathe again. As for the cormorants that do catch fish, they break through the water's surface, fly over to this patch of reeds where I am, and spit out the fish they deliberately kept in their throat pouches one by one. In about 2 hours, these 20 cormorants had nearly filled the urea sack I brought. Now and then a fish would drop, and all I had to do was pick it up and toss it into the sack. My back was aching, but I never got tired of it. Was I picking up fish? No, I was picking up money. Among the fish the cormorants caught, crucian carp fry were the most numerous. There were also some bighead carp, small grass carp, and quite a few assorted small fish like white minnows. I even found 3 mandarin fish. Mandarin fish aren't common here because their flesh comes in thick, garlic clove-like segments with very few bones, so they're popular and fetch a good price. Crucian carp fry sell for 0.4 yuan per gene, while these mandarin fish can sell for 1.5 yuan. In my previous life, I spent decades dealing in local produce, so my hand for judging weight is spot on. I only had to heft these 3 mandarin fish to know each was a little over 1 gene. Because the efficiency was so high, it still wasn't noon when I left the riverbank carrying the fish, and it was only a little past 1 in the afternoon when I got into town. After gnawing on a bun, I found myself a market stall. At this time, setting up a stall was already semi-openly tolerated, and nobody bothered to crack down on it. I set down my back basket, untied the urea sack, and dumped the fish onto the ground. Most of them were still alive. Then I spread the urea sack out flat on the ground and sorted the fish into separate piles by type. As soon as I started moving things around like that, I began attracting people. A middle-aged man pushing a bicycle, with a fountain pen tucked into the pocket of his blue work jacket, obviously a skilled worker from some factory, asked, "Comrade, how are you selling this fish?" I tilted my head up and flashed a big white grin. By the piece. Crucian carp fry, bighead carp, and carp are 0.5 yuan. Grass carp are 0.8 yuan. Mandarin fish are 2 yuan. And this pile of small miscellaneous fish, 0.1 yuan each. Hearing how briskly I quoted prices, the middle-aged man knew right away I was an old hand at business, and the prices really were fair. He nodded. "Give me 1 carp and 1 mandarin fish." "Did you get these from the riverbank? We don't get many mandarin fish around here." I threaded a reed stalk in through the fish's gills and out through its mouth, quickly tied a knot, and handed it to him. That'll be 2.5 yuan total. The change is correct, please take it. Sure did. Spent ages at it, and only got these 3. Took a lot of effort. Well, you've really got some skill. In past years, the riverbank fish wouldn't come up in numbers for another half-month. You can tell from the tail at a glance that this carp is from the riverbank. Other carp are so fishy you can barely eat them. I gave him a thumbs up. Big brother, you really know good food. Once I made that first sale, the business that followed just kept coming. Like the man said, fish from the riverbank hadn't started coming in large quantities yet, so this sack of fish of mine was still something of a rarity at the market. In less than 2 hours, even the last few small miscellaneous fish had been bought out by an auntie, who said she was going to fry them and eat them bones and all. I roughly calculated the accounts. The mandarin fish brought 6 yuan, the Crucian carp fry 18, the rest 4.5 yuan altogether, plus 1.2 yuan for the miscellaneous fish, making 29.7 yuan in total. There was still 1 big head carp and 1 Crucian carp fry left in the back basket. Alright, this works. A surge of excitement rose in me. Actually, after I gained the beast gathering and bird commanding art, I'd also entertained some crooked thoughts, sending rats to steal gold necklaces, having crows snatch money, or even getting a swarm of hornets to stop cargo trucks on the main road. There were just too many ways to get rich overnight. But after thinking it over, I gave them all up. Instead, now relying on these fish. After working so hard to earn 30 yuan, my heart was full of nothing but satisfaction and joy. Rebirth or magic. Both were opportunities gained out of thin air, so why use them to commit evil? I packed up the urea sack, hoisted the bamboo basket onto my back, and headed back to the production team. By the time I got home, it was already getting dark. This old yellow mud house hadn't even been connected to electricity at the time. Lin Yunfang was also reluctant to light the kerosene lamp and always worked in the dark. Hearing the commotion from by the stove, she hurried out and came close to look me over. Aside from the strong, fishy smell, I wasn't very dirty or wet, so I probably hadn't fallen. She sniffed the air and craned her neck to look into the basket. You really got fish? Yep. I took it off and showed her. Lin Yunfang deliberately carried them to the front gate. Seeing that both fish looked to be over a jin each, she truly beamed. These 2 fish would be worth more than a yuan at the market. How'd you get them? Had the waterbirds help me catch them? Lin Yunfang rolled her eyes at me twice and couldn't be bothered to ask more. Carrying the fish to the backyard to clean them, she said, "Nay, take 5 fun and go buy a piece of tofu. Ping, go to Aunt Xiuqing's and ask for some scallions." Li Shumi answered happily, went to the drawer in her parents' room to get a 5-fin coin, and ran out the door excitedly. There was a tofu shop in Shanghai Brigade. It used to belong to the brigade, but starting this year it had been turned over to a private owner. Li Daong came back even later than I did, and the moment he entered the house he smelled the fragrance of stewed fish, and immediately realized that his son really had gotten fish. "What fish did you get?" "1 big head carp and 1 Crucian carp. Mom stewed the big head, and she said the Crucian carp would be braised tomorrow." Braised Crucian carp. Li Daong couldn't help but start drooling too. Crucian carp stewed with tofu tastes good as well, and it saves oil. Lin Yunfang, who was by the stove with her ears perked up, heard him say that, and immediately raised her voice to snap at him. "Crucian carp stewed with tofu. What? Are you trying to produce milk?" Uffed. That time I really couldn't hold it in. Dinner was mixed grain buns with a little less wheat flour added. But at least it was solid food, and with a bowl of big head carp tofu soup to go with it, the taste was completely different. The 2 little ones ate noisily without even lifting their heads. Watching them made me feel a little sad. "You too, eat slower and watch out for the bones. Brother is still going again tomorrow. From now on I'll let you eat fish every day until you're sick of it." Li Shumi looked up, a little embarrassed. "I want to keep eating it. There'll never be a time when I don't want to." "Me too. I want to keep eating fish too." Li Shuping shouted along. "Just eat, you too. Even if there is fish, there's not that much oil to cook it with." Grandma took all the oil away. Li Daong sighed. "Can you stop bringing that up over and over? My ears are getting calloused from hearing it." I was used to it and couldn't be bothered to cut in. Finished my bun and wiped my mouth. "I'm going out for a walk. Light a lamp. It's too dark to see outside." I waved my hand. "No need. The moon is out, I can see." Of course I wasn't going out just to wander around, but to ask about renting a house. I had 30 yuan on me now, enough to rent 2 rooms in the village. And I had already picked out my target long ago, Old Lady Shuhe's place by the main road. Old Lady Shuhe was only in her 50s, not yet 60. Her husband had died of illness years ago, and she had raised 2 sons on her own. The elder son had earned merit as a soldier in battle and was now an officer. His wife worked at a military hospital, and the couple were stationed in the Southwest year-round. The younger son used to be a teacher at the village primary school, and at the beginning of last year, he took the first exam after the college entrance examination was reinstated, passed in one go, and went to the capital for university. In all the villages within 10 li around, it would be hard to find anyone more accomplished than Old Lady Shuhe's 2 sons. Because Old Lady Shuhe insisted on refusing to go west with her elder son, the elder son had specially hired people a few years ago to build his mother a new house in the village. Blue bricks, black tiles, white walls, and a large courtyard. 5 rooms in all, with a second story built over the middle 3. When it was built, besides giving his mother a place for her old age, it was even more meant to be a new house for his younger brother to marry in. Unexpectedly, with reform and opening up and the restoration of the college entrance examination, my younger brother also made it out of the mountains on his own, and the house ended up sitting empty. What I had my eye on was those vacant rooms of Granny Shuhe's. Granny Shuhe was just lighting the lamp and listening to the radio cassette player, which was playing a Huangmei opera tape by Yin Fengying. The birds in the tree come in pairs. She was in very good health, and her eyesight was good too. Although the light wasn't bright, she still recognized me at a glance. "Who is it? Come in quick. What brings you here?" I got straight to the point and explained why I had come. "Granny Shuhe, you know our family's situation too. We were driven back to live in the old house." Sigh. I heard her sigh and smiled. "It's nothing. When a tree grows big, its branches split. When a bird grows up, it leaves the nest. It's just that our old house is really hard to live in. Drafty, leaky, and with too many rat holes. Winter is coming soon, and the little ones at home probably won't be able to take it. So I wanted to come ask whether we could rent 2 rooms from you and stay for a while. Once we scrape together enough money to build a new house, we'll move out." Granny Shuhe hadn't expected it to be about renting a house. In all her life, she had never had the concept of renting out rooms, so when she heard it, she was a little bewildered. She wanted to refuse, but for some reason, she also hesitated a little. It wasn't that she cared about the rent. It was more that living alone was too lonely. Li Daong and his wife had a good reputation in the village. Lin Yunfeng was capable and kept things clean, and Li Daong was a hard worker and skilled in bamboo craftsmanship. Li Shuhe said a few more things about how they would only live in the rented rooms and wouldn't touch the rest of the place, and only then did he stand up. "Granny Shuhe, think it over. If it can work, go to our house and let us know. Sooner would be best. If not, we'll have to talk to other families." This wasn't a negotiating tactic on my part. I meant it seriously. There weren't any houses in the village as good as Granny Shuhe's, but slightly worse ones could still be found. It's just that old houses left unoccupied all have one problem or another, and I didn't want to go through more trouble than necessary. From then on, I caught a basket of fish every day, 40 or 50 on good days, a little over 30 on bad ones, and my savings quickly exceeded 200 yuan. I also bought a whistle, and every time I gave orders to the cormorants, I'd put on a show and blow it a little. Although using a whistle to command birds to catch fish was quite bizarre too, it still felt more believable than magic. From that day on, our family never lacked fish again. But after the first couple of days, Lin Yunfeng became reluctant to use oil and didn't like cooking it anymore. I was the one who insisted, and I even took fish to trade with the villagers for 10 jin of rapeseed oil. Only then did we have fish to eat every day. One day after dinner, Lin Yunfeng suddenly remarked while clearing the bowls and chopsticks, "Eating like this every day feels a bit immoral." By mid-December, the lake surface began to freeze over, and the cormorants moved to another large river shoal on the leeward side. So I stopped for the time being. It wasn't easy for me to find someone to partner with. I had no means of transportation, and on top of that, I couldn't be too conspicuous about directing the cormorants, so the limitations were considerable. After selling the last batch of fish, I carried my bamboo basket back to the village. Li Xiuqing, the household next door to our old house, and also the women's representative of the production brigade, saw me and hurried over. "Did you save one for me?" I set down the basket and pulled out a mandarin fish. "Here, this one is just under 2 jin. Give me 2 yuan." Before I went out today, Li Xiuqing had said she was having guests and asked me to get her a fish, preferably a mandarin fish. She knew good fish too. A mandarin fish from such a large river shoal, at this size, couldn't be bought for 2 yuan in the market. But since the Li family had moved here, they had troubled Li Xiuqing's family several times for things like scallions and ginger. So if she hadn't insisted on paying, I had planned to give her one for free. Li Xiuqing took out the money and handed it to me. I accepted it and asked curiously, "What kind of guests are they that you need to treat them to mandarin fish?" "It's your brother June's sweetheart's family. They've come over to look things over." "Huh? What's with the huh? In a couple of years it'll be your turn, and then it'll be your mother doing the worrying, huh?" Li Xiuqing smiled as she hurried back inside to clean the fish. A matchmaking meeting. I was a little stunned for a moment. In the half-month since my rebirth, I've been busy hustling to make money and really hadn't thought of my wife. Mainly because in my previous life, my wife later followed our daughter to live in the city, helping take care of the children and cook, while I stayed here collecting goods and making money. The two of us only saw each other once or twice a year. And after 7 or 8, even 10 years like that, I got used to being alone. But now, she should only be 17 and still underage. Sigh, her family circumstances seem pretty average too. I scratch my head. In this life, I don't plan to look for her again. The two of us muddled along together for decades in the last life, and deep down we both understood that if there were another chance, it'd be better not to stir the same pot together. Forget it, we'll see later. When I went inside full of thoughts, I saw old lady Shuhe sitting on a stool, saying something to my mother. I let out an "Ah, old lady Shuhe. If you hadn't come soon, I was about to go look for you. It's already snowing. 5 Whether you stay or not." Old lady Shuhe hurriedly stood up and said with a smile, "Oh my. We wanted to ask someone to call Zhang Wo and ask for his opinion, and that delayed us." Li Shuhe set down the back basket. "Oh, then what did brother Zhang Wo say?" "He was old lady Shuhe's eldest son. He said your family's eldest brother is someone he knows well too, so he felt at ease renting it to you, and that's why we hurried over to tell your mother." Of course, old lady Shuhe still hadn't said everything. Xiao Zhangwo had always worried about her being home alone, afraid that if she fell or got hurt, no one would notice. So as soon as he heard there were reliable people in the village who wanted to rent their house, he immediately agreed. Besides, before Li Shua's elder brother joined the army, he really had asked Xiao Zhangwo for advice on quite a few things. Seeing that the house rental matter was settled, Li Shuhe also let out a sigh of relief. As the weather got colder and colder, and since he wasn't the original owner who had never lived in a good house before, he really couldn't stand it anymore. "All right then, let's draw up an agreement, settle on a price, and move in. It's too cold. At night the wind howls right in, and our noses have been stuffed up for several days." Old lady Shuhe gave an looked at Li Shuhe, then turned to look at Lin Yunfang. Li Shuhe paused, then suddenly realized, "Oh, I forgot to tell my mother about this." "All right then, old lady Shuhe, go back and think about the agreement. And later tonight, we'll go with the village secretary to your house to discuss it. Okay?" Old lady Shuhe nodded repeatedly. Okay, then we'll wait for you at home." After old lady Shuhe went out, Li Shuhe turned to look at his mother and explained the house rental matter. "This house isn't livable, Mom. Let's rent old lady Shuhe's place first and stay there for a year or 2. By then, our own new house should be built too." Lin Yunfang was also utterly bewildered. Rent a house? Rent a house in the village? What kind of unheard of news is this? You've got quite a mind of your own. Renting someone else's house to live in, what kind of thing is that? What's so strange about that? In the city, lots of people rent places. Some rent public housing, some rent private housing, all kinds. Li Shuhe's attitude was so matter-of-fact that Lin Yunfang felt like she was the one being ignorant, so she changed tack. "Then what about the money? Shuhe said you want to rent 2 rooms? 1 room costs 1 yuan a month. So wouldn't that be more than 20 yuan a year? That's about as much as I make in work points in a whole year." When it came to money, Li Shuhe had even less of a problem. He pulled a stack of mixed bills from his pocket. As he became more and more skilled, Li Shuhe also began catching more expensive fish, and in the past few days he had basically been making 40 or 50 yuan in income. Looking at the stack of money, Lin Yunfang didn't know what to say for a moment. At first, they didn't know that Li Shuhe had been setting up a stall to sell fish. Later, villagers saw him and came back to tell her, so Li Shuhe didn't keep hiding it. When it came to money, he also said plainly that he needed it and could not hand it over. Li Daong and Lin Yunfang surprisingly did not press him, only telling him not to spend it recklessly. After all, the two of them were still in their prime and not living off their son. "Mom, earning money is for living a good life. The good days ahead matter, and the good days now matter too. If we spend a few dozen yuan, we can live in Granny Shuhe's family's new house. It's well worth it. The weather is getting colder and colder. Not to mention you and me, Mei and Ping, those 2 little ones, are undernourished and not physically strong. If anyone gets sick, spending money on injections and medicine is secondary. It's the suffering that matters. Li Shuhe had no worries at all about persuading his mother. The custom here is that whoever earns money in the family is the head of the household. He could earn more than 250 a month, so it was impossible for Lin Yunfang not to listen to him. Just like how the family property was split so unfairly, Lin Yunfang had no choice and could only listen to Li Daong, because Li Daong earned money and was the head of the household. Sure enough, Lin Yunfang waved her hand. You have the money, so you make the call. Mom, tell Dad, okay? I'll go find the village secretary right now. We'll get the document settled tonight and move tomorrow. He did not want to stay in the old house for even one more day. The document was settled very smoothly. There was no precedent for this anyway, so they just made it clear in writing that the house was being rented, lest after renting it for 3 or 5 years, they end up occupying it as their own. That was the only thing Granny Shuhe was worried about. The two families agreed on a monthly rent of 2 yuan, to renegotiate once a year and payment every 6 months. As for a deposit, Granny Shuhe didn't mention it, and Li Shuhe didn't make an issue of it either. Li Shuhe immediately handed 12 yuan to Granny Shuhe, took the receipt, and also got the keys to the upstairs and downstairs rooms on the left side of the main hall. So we're moving in tomorrow? Granny Shuhe was also quite straightforward. Move in. The beds and cabinets in the rooms are all already there, and nothing else is stored inside. When the village secretary previously helped witness the Li family's division of property, he really hadn't expected things to develop this way. Li Daong had actually rented a house. The Shao family's new house was far more impressive than the Li family's few rooms. It seems Shuhe really did make money selling fish. Li Shuhe smiled. I make a bit. Otherwise we really wouldn't be able to keep going. My old man was even thinking of borrowing grain. How could that be okay? The village secretary felt a little awkward. Although he was only a witness, the Li family's whole affair had indeed happened under his watch. With the matter of the house settled, Li Shuhe headed back home. As soon as he arrived, Li Daong was sitting at the door smoking his pipe tobacco. And the moment he saw Li Shuhe, he immediately stood up. What are you renting a house for? Doesn't our own home have room to live in? You want to go live in someone else's house? I'm telling you, I won't go. Li Shuhe didn't argue with him and simply went around him into the house. If you won't go, then stay here. I'm not going to force you. Those words left Lin Yunfang, who had been about to speak, and Li Daong, who was blocking the doorway, both at a loss. Li Shuhe had talked all night and was terribly thirsty. He poured himself a bowl of warm water and drank it down, then let out a long breath. The matter of renting the house is already settled. The money has been paid, and the document has been written. Just like when you split the family, a deal is a deal, and there's no taking back a move once it's made. If you want to live there, then come live there together. If you don't want to, you can stay here, or you can go back to Grandpa and Grandma's house. In any case, my mother, my younger sister, and my little brother are going to live in a good house, eat refined grain at every meal, have meat at every meal, and wear decent clothes. No one can stop that. Bang! Li Shuhe slapped the empty bowl down on the table. Watching the father and son confront each other, Lin Yunfang felt indescribably conflicted. On the one hand, she was a little flustered, afraid the family would be turned upside down. On the other hand, she also felt a sense of pride and vindication. In the second half of a woman's life, being able to rely on her son gives her more backbone than relying on her husband. Li Daong opened his mouth, but had nothing to say. For a man who heads the household, making sure his wife and children are fed, clothed, and not left to freeze is only natural. But after the family split, he truly could not do it. What else could he say? Seeing that Li Daong said nothing, Li Shuhe knew that his father's heart was being dealt a huge blow. As a man, as a father, his self-respect might be collapsing. But Li Shuhe had no intention of comforting him. Maybe it was Lin Yunfang's years of complaints. Maybe it was the painful memories of those 5 years in the old house. Or maybe it was the thin bond between father and son. In short, Li Shuhe probably did harbor some resentment toward Li Daong. So he turned to arrange things for his mother. Mom, pack up. Tomorrow I'll borrow a flatbed cart, and we'll start moving in the morning. Shuhe Granny said the stove she made for Brother Fuqiang can be used by us. The iron pot is already installed. Just scrub it, and it can be used. Later, when our new house is built, we'll replace it with 2 new iron pots for her. And we can just take the old ones with us. Lin Yunfang instinctively glanced at Li Daong, saw that he still said nothing, and nodded. Got it. In the room, with their ears perked up, Li Shumi and Li Shuping, not daring to make a sound, looked at each other. Sis, are we moving again? Yeah. Does the new home leak when it rains? Li Shumi thought for a moment. It probably doesn't leak, and there's no draft either. Second brother said he wants us to live in a good house. Maybe it'll even be better than Grandpa and Grandma's house. Li Shuping's eyes lit up with anticipation. Then I want to go to the new home. I'm so cold at night. No matter how I wrap the quilt, the wind still gets in. With Li Shuhe making such a big show of moving, of course he couldn't keep it from the villagers. Old Li and his wife, along with his uncles and elder male relatives, all got the news immediately. Even if they didn't want to ask around, there would always be busybodies coming to tell them. The two elders drove out their own son and grandson, and now the family has gone to rent a house. Don't you have anything to say about that? This kind of after-dinner gossip was not to be missed. In front of outsiders, of course they didn't say a word, but once the door was closed, their expressions really turned ugly. Li Shuhe's grandmother was furious. How do they have the nerve? Going to rent someone else's house. Didn't we give them a house to live in? Making such a big fuss. Aren't they just trying to let the whole village know I treated them harshly? It must be something Lin Yunfang stirred up. She just won't accept it and still wants to make trouble. Old Li took one puff after another from his pipe, saying nothing. Li family's youngest uncle, Li Dai, that is, Li Deyong's fourth younger brother, was fifth among the 6 siblings, 10 years younger than Li Deyong. I asked around, and it really wasn't Yunfang's doing. I heard it was all Shuhe handling it, signing the papers, paying the money. Shuhe was the one taking care of it all. Wasn't the village talking about it the other day? That Shuhe made quite a bit of money catching fish. I reckon this was what it was for, renting a house. The wife of the Li family's eldest son, Li Dexin, snorted. I heard he's been dealing with dozens, even over 100 fish a day, and every household has been cooking with oil and lighting the stove every day. Yet I haven't seen him bring even half a fish for Grandpa and Grandma to eat. What an ungrateful wretch. Fourth Uncle Li was already quite old and still unmarried, a bit of a rogue, and he didn't bother giving his sister-in-law any face. Heh, bring you fish? Do you think they even acknowledge you when they see you? Can a family be split up like that? Once it's split, the family ties are cut too. Shouldn't that have been obvious long ago? How did I split it? Didn't I give him his private plot? Didn't I give him his grain ration? And the old house isn't small either. Their family lives more spaciously than we do. They just want to stir up trouble. What can I do? With people like that, even if I worked like an ox or a horse for them, they still wouldn't appreciate my kindness. Old Granny Li said through gritted teeth. Fourth Uncle Li was truly curious. Come on, Mom. Second brother has always treated you quite well. And although second sister-in-law has a tough temper, she's not unreasonable. Why is it that you just can't stand them? I really can't figure it out. Li Laosi actually didn't want to split the family, because Li Deyong was truly a first-rate worker. When they were out working, his second brother would lend him a hand from time to time, letting him slack off a bit in secret. Granny Li was stumped by his question and, for a moment, didn't know what to say. Of course there were reasons. When Li Deyong had just been born, back before liberation, a spirit medium said his birth chart was too harsh and that he would bring harm to his family, so incense had to be burned at the temple. The incense was burned, but the knot in her heart remained. More recently, when Li Deyong's eldest son was serving in the army, at first an allowance was mailed back every year, but later it stopped coming. Granny Li blamed that on Li Deyong and his wife too, thinking they had put him up to it. Because if it was sent back, it would go into the family account anyway, so it was better to keep it in Li Shudong's own hands. In short, it built up over time, and the more she looked at them, the more displeasing they became, to the point where they could no longer coexist. After Old Man Li finished a pipe of tobacco, he called to Li Dai, "Go tell your second brother to come over. If the old house isn't fit to live in, then move back here. His room is still being kept for them. What kind of thing is it to live in someone else's house? The Li family can't afford that kind of embarrassment." Sister-in-law Li immediately objected. Dad, Shuming and Shuhua have both moved in there. If you have Deyong's family move back too, where are they supposed to live? Old Man Li clearly felt they had already been embarrassed enough, and his tone was blunt. Wherever they used to live, they can go back there. If they can't fit, then sleep on the floor. If that still won't do, then go live in the old house. Laosi, hurry and go call him. Seeing his father lose his temper, Li Dai didn't dare refuse. He didn't know whether he should go to the old house or to Shuehua's mother-in-law's home. After thinking it over, he first made a detour to the old house, and sure enough, he saw his second brother sitting on the doorstep. Second brother, Dad is angry. He thinks it's embarrassing for you to live at someone else's house, and he wants you to go back for a trip. He's probably going to tell you to move back. Li Deyong's pipe bowl sizzled as he smoked, smoke swirling endlessly around his face, making even his features hard to see clearly. Second brother? Am I moving back by myself? Huh. Li Dai froze for a moment. Dad said all of you should move back. Mom didn't say second sister-in-law couldn't go back either. Li Daong let out a long breath and looked at Li Dai for quite a while. This younger brother who had always refused to marry was the Li family's biggest headache. And he couldn't avoid being lazy and slippery in daily life either. Yet even so, their father and mother valued him more than themselves. The family has already been split up, so where is there to go back to? Li Daong tapped the pipe bowl and stood up. By not stopping Lin Yunfang from packing his clothes that morning, he had actually already made his decision. Li Dai coming over only helped him see reality more clearly. It was the last straw. Li Dai opened his mouth, but he couldn't say anything either. Let's go. Li Daong got up and motioned for Li Dai to head to the Li family's new house. Li Shuhe came to move the remaining things. Not seeing Li Daong, it was Li Xiuqing nearby who told him that his fourth uncle had come to call him away. He thought about it, wasn't in a hurry to move anything, and also headed toward the new house. Before he even entered the courtyard, he heard his grandma's shrill voice. What do you mean by this? When we divided up the old house, you agreed and put your thumbprint on it too. So why can't you live there? Did a wall collapse? Or did the roof cave in? How did you come up with the idea of running off to rent someone else's house? Oh, so she, Lin Yunfang, wants the entire Shuhe brigade to know that she's being bullied by me, her vicious mother-in-law? Or is it you, Li Daong, who also thinks I've wronged you, and you hold resentment in your heart? Enough. Old man Li barked. Why are you yelling? If other people hear it, does that sound good? Old Mrs. Li was indeed furious, her chest heaving hard as she stared at Li Daong as if looking at an enemy. Old man Li watched her for a while before saying to Li Daong, if the old house really isn't livable, then move back first. After we finish the bit of work on hand and get the rapeseed planted, everyone can help repair it for you, and then we'll talk about it after this winter passes. He took a puff from his tobacco pipe. It's not a good look to stay at someone else's place. Li Daong was silent for a while, then shook his head. The house has already been rented, and we've already moved. They have all gone over there already. So there's no point in saying anything else. We won't be living there long anyway. Once the land is divided next year, if we work hard for a couple of years, we'll always be able to build 2 rooms of our own. Li Shuhe stood at the courtyard gate. Hearing his father say this, he smiled, then went inside. Dad, they're calling you to eat. After calling him, he greeted his grandparents. Grandpa, Grandma, have you eaten yet? With the younger generation right there, Old Li had things he wanted to say but couldn't say them. He glanced at Li Daong, snorted, and went inside with his hands behind his back. After Li Daong and his son walked away, he smashed a bowl in anger and didn't even eat. The 2 slices of meat he had saved ended up benefiting Li Dai instead. This youngest son, under the burning gazes of his nephews, ate all the meat bite by bite. After finishing, he smacked his lips, still wanting more. At Li Shuhe's home, today's meal was especially lavish. There was not only the fish left from yesterday, but also the meat he bought today. After the start of winter, each production team had gradually begun slaughtering pigs and distributing meat. Their Shuhe production team hadn't slaughtered pigs yet, so this meat was bought from the neighboring production team. Pork belly from the lower section, with less fat and more lean meat, which wasn't very popular now. Li Shuhe spent 1.8 and bought 2 jin, letting Lin Yunfang braise a big bowl of it in brown sauce. The seasonings were generous, and it tasted very good. Since Li Shuhe went into town every day, the things the family ought to have bought had all been bought. Things like star anise and cinnamon bark were all there by the stove. Lin Yunfang also generously sliced a few pieces of cured pork, made a winter bamboo shoot and cured pork soup, then stir-fried shredded potatoes, a dish of oil-braised winter greens, and mixed some shredded radish. In short, 5 or 6 good dishes filled the small dining table by the stove to the brim, making the 2 children drool and keep secretly swallowing. Li Shuhe had originally gone to invite Granny Shuhe to eat with them too, but Granny Shuhe declined. Today we've moved into a new house. Although it's not our own home, it's still a good thing. We won't have to suffer from the cold and wind anymore, and we can get through the winter well. After saying that, Li Shuhe picked up a piece of braised pork for Li Shumi, and Li Shuping let out an excited cheer and also reached his chopsticks toward the braised pork. The 2 of them ate until their eyes curved into smiles. The last time they had braised pork was already blurry in their little memories. Li Shuhe picked up a slice of winter bamboo shoot. It was very fresh and sweet. Is this a bumper year for winter bamboo shoots? Lin Yunfang gave an I heard the price has dropped quite a bit, only half of what it was in previous years. And those who know how to dig them are digging dozens of jin at a time. Li Shuhe nodded. I'm planning to go up the mountain tomorrow to take a look too. Li Daong, who had been silent the whole way, also looked over. The mountain is already covered with snow. What are you going into the mountains for? As soon as these words were exchanged, the Cold War between father and son came to an end, although Li Daong still looked sullen. Li Shuhe pretended not to notice. It's hard to find food after it snows, so I worked out a pheasant snare and want to go up the mountain to see if I can catch a few pheasants or something. Li Daong had no idea where he found the time to work out a pheasant snare. Then be careful. At this time, there's little food in the mountains, so large animals will run toward the outskirts, especially wild boars. If you run into one, hide quickly, otherwise one crashes from it, and your bones will all be shattered. Li Shuhe nodded, then suddenly asked, Dad, have you ever seen a tiger come down from the mountain? He remembered that in the early 1980s, traces of South China tigers had still been found around here, apparently feces. He wondered whether there were still tigers in their mountains at this time. Where would there be tigers nowadays? I haven't heard of tigers coming down the mountain for nearly 20 years. Back when I was only about 10, the tiger hunting team got a few and carried them down the mountain tied up. The village dogs tucked their tails and barked even at the sight of dead tigers. Every commune hunted them too hard, and after that they were rarely seen. Li Shuhe felt it was a bit of a pity. If he could control a South China tiger, he could run rampant in the mountains. Li Shuhe suddenly slapped himself in the face. His nerve was getting too big. If he really ran into a tiger in the mountains and went to forcibly control it like some idiot, only to fail because his supernatural ability wasn't strong enough, he'd just be delivering himself as takeout. Second brother, why are you hitting yourself? Li Shuping had eaten until his belly was full, and when he looked up he just happened to see Li Shuhe give himself a slap. It's nothing, your brothers, just reminding himself to be careful going up the mountain. Li Shuping didn't really understand, but he didn't ask either. He looked longingly at the remaining braised pork a few times before finally hardening his heart and getting down from the table. He had to hold back and stop eating. Li Shuhe was a little worried for him. That's pretty greasy, isn't it? Could it upset your stomach? Lin Yunfeng really hadn't expected there would come a day when their family would worry about this. He should be fine. After eating fish for half a month, his stomach has gotten used to some grease. Go on, stuff yourself. If you eat yourself sick, you can go hungry for half a month and properly clear out your stomach. Li Shuping's eyes widened, and he quickly shook his head. I didn't get sick. I didn't get sick. I only ate a few pieces. Although Li Shuhe said he was going up the mountain to set pheasant snares, this time he actually wasn't planning to do it yet, only to first scout out the resources in the mountains around Shuhe Brigade. But as soon as he entered the mountain, he shook his head. The mountain was too clean. At this time, everyone had their own responsibility mountain, and every 2 or 3 years they would invite relatives and friends up the mountain to chop firewood, then tie it up bundle by bundle and carry it home. Those scrub trees and bushes that couldn't grow into anything were cut down batch after batch, so of course the woods were left clean and bare. No wonder not many people around here hunted. There were more people digging for medicinal herbs. Li Shuhe checked the direction and decided to go farther into the mountains. Their stretch of mountain was only the outer edge of a great mountain range. Deeper inside, there were still vast tracts of primeval forest rarely visited by people. Back then, the local authorities called on people to get meat from the mountains, and aside from those that were hunted, most of the animals fled into the deep mountains rather than going extinct. But the deep mountains were very far away, and Li Shuhe didn't dare go in, not only because he was afraid of running into large beasts, but also because he was afraid of getting lost in the mountains. He needed to quickly raise the level of the beast gathering and bird commanding art. When the time came, he could make wild animals understand things like direction and location, and then he wouldn't have to worry about getting lost in the mountains. After looking at the daylight, Li Shuhe started heading out of the woods, but he wasn't leaving empty-handed either. Not only fishermen, but even buyers of local produce never come away empty-handed. If there were no dried mushrooms, gathering some dried string beans would do. If there were no adzuki beans, some dried potato slices would also work. Along the way, what Li Shuhe ran into most were squirrels. These little creatures were searching in places not yet covered by snow for the last bit of fruit, storing up for the long winter. You can't eat it all anyway, so contributing half to me isn't too much to ask, right? In his previous life, he had heard from somewhere that the food squirrels stored far exceeded what they needed for winter, and that many of the nuts were ultimately forgotten by them. Since that was the case, Li Shuhe felt no psychological burden in requisitioning some. At worst, once the snow got thick later on, he'd carry some corn kernels back to them. The beast gathering and bird commanding art had improved slightly after controlling the cormorants. Controlling 40 or 50 squirrels in one go was no problem at all. By the time Li Shuhe walked out of the woods, there was already nearly half a basket of various nuts in his back basket. Seeing him return, Lin Yunfeng wiped her hands and helped him take off the basket. Oh my, it's pretty heavy. Did you really catch something? Li Shuhe changed into a pair of cotton slippers and shook his head. No. What's that? Lin Yunfang asked as she lifted the urea sack, then let out an "Oh." Did you raid a squirrel nest? Haha, how did you know? Lin Yunfang hefted the basket. There had to be 40 or 50 gene of stuff in it, and she smiled. How could I not know? Around the years before and after you were born, everyone was starving terribly. What hadn't we done? Not to mention squirrels. Back then, digging out field mouse nests was serious business. People also went up the mountain looking for squirrel nests, but they were hard to find. Squirrels usually won't go back to the nest once they notice someone. Thinking back on those hard days, she casually sorted the nuts, and even took out a steel yard to weigh them pile by pile. There are 30.5 gene of walnuts. The place you went to probably has quite a few trees. There are quite a lot of chestnuts too, almost 6 gene. We can use them to stew jujubes for the new year, so we won't have to ask anyone for some. Pine cones are the most numerous. Oh, looks like they all have seeds in them. Around here, there are lots of pine trees, but most of them are Chinese red pine and Masan pine, which don't produce pine nuts. Only a small portion are Huashan pine, which do produce pine nuts. And their quality still can't compare with the Korean pine nuts from the Northeast, so basically no one makes a living collecting pine nuts. These little squirrels probably gathered cones from Huashan pine. Later, when we cook rice porridge, toss a few pine cones into the ashes, roast them, then crack out the pine nuts. They taste wonderful. Back when your grandpa worked at the forest farm, sometimes he would bring pine cones back for me, and for your eldest and second maternal aunts too. Li Shuhe rarely saw Lin Yunfang looking this relaxed and cheerful. When she was with her parents, she actually lived fairly well, because Li Shuhe's grandfather was a minor cadre at the forest farm and earned a salary. Unfortunately, he died too early, leaving behind a whole family of farmers. But even now his grandmother still gets a few yuan a month. I don't know whether it's from the state or the forest farm. Li Shuhe's grandmother and eldest maternal uncle are both a bit difficult. And because of that, the younger ones in their family don't like going there. But the old lady actually dotes on the younger generation and feels for her daughter too. Every so often she still scrapes together a few yuan to help out Lin Yunfang. After Lin Yunfang sorted everything and put it away, especially those walnuts, she turned out a lidded bamboo basket and put them inside. These 30-odd gene of walnuts. When you go into town, find someone who buys mountain goods and sell them. These walnuts have little meat and thick shells, so they don't taste good if you roast them yourself. They have to be prepared by people who specialize in this and add seasonings for them to taste good. This stuff isn't exactly expensive either, just a little over 5 mao per gene for the dried goods. Okay, Lin Yunfang fastened the lid on the bamboo basket and hung it up to keep mice from gnawing on it, though in fact there were no mice left here anymore. All of them had been driven off by Li Shuhe. The disobedient ones got beaten up by the obedient ones, and then they moved away. These few rooms of Shuhe's mother-in-law's house were probably the cleanest in the village now. That evening after dinner, Li Shuhe pulled a few pine nuts out of the stove, and he didn't let the eager-to-try Li Shuping handle them either. It was late at night, and everything would get pitch black, and in winter it wasn't easy to wash up, so he might as well not give his mother more work. He cracked them open one by one and put them into a small bamboo joint bowl, and everyone else took them from the bowl to eat. The roasted pine nuts were glistening with oil, and their aroma was mouth-watering. After eating a few, Li Daong stopped. This stuff is very nourishing, lots of oil in it. He looked at Li Shuhe, whose hands were smeared pitch black, and who looked very much like an elder brother. You do manage to come back with something every time you go out, one way or another. Didn't you say you were going to snare pheasants today? Didn't catch any? Today I just went to check the situation first. I've already found a few spots. Tomorrow I'll go set the snares. Li Daong nodded. Then you're not catching fish anymore? Our family doesn't have a net either. Otherwise, we could chisel a hole in the ice and give it a try. Setting pheasant snares can't be treated as a proper steady job. You can't catch them that many times. There isn't much on the brigade's mountain anyway. We'd have to go deeper into the mountains. And besides setting pheasant snares, I don't really know how to do much else, so I still need to learn first. As for fish, after I finish setting the snares, I'll go to the big river shoal and see how other people do it. Around our area, a lot of places freeze over. Over by Huyuan commune it's sheltered from the wind, so there's less ice, but it's far, and without a vehicle you can't get there. After Li Daong adjusted his mindset, he became very thoughtful. If you want to learn hunting, you can go to your uncle Daoquan. He's the militia captain, and when he was young, he even took part in bandit suppression. He's a good shot and knows a lot. Li Shuhe thought it over. What he actually wanted was to find a hunter to study under properly, not just marksmanship, but also badger trapping, rabbit hunting, tracking musk deer, bird hunting. The beast gathering and bird luring spell couldn't make animals come die on their own, so he could only rely on his own skills. When the time came, with special vision, his gains would definitely go without saying. When he told Li Daong this idea, Li Daong thought for a moment. Your uncle Daoquan actually knows quite a bit too, but he isn't a professional hunter. You can learn from him first, and later I'll help you look around some more. Oh right, do you want to get a bike? How much money do you still have on hand? Li Shuhe's heart stirred. In those days, buying a bicycle was even more stylish than buying an ordinary car in later generations. What? I've still got a little over 300. Can you get a bike? Li Daong didn't make any promises, only said he'd go ask around, figuring he could probably get an old 28-inch roadster for 80,100. That much would definitely be needed. After all, he was a bamboo craftsman who traveled from village to village and commune to commune, so he was pretty well informed. Li Shuhe hadn't expected that right after moving house, he'd be able to get a bicycle. Don't be fooled by those workers. Every household had a bicycle, but for farmers, getting one was truly not easy. Then keep it in mind and help me ask around more. If I can get a bike, going back and forth will be so much more convenient. When the time comes and my mother goes back to my grandma's house, I alone can take all 3 of them with me. In those days, one bicycle carrying 4 people was extremely common. After hearing them finish, Lin Yunfang clapped her hands and stopped eating too. Zhao Jinmei has gone back to the city. Did you know? Zhao Jinmei? Li Shuhe froze for a moment, suddenly remembering the policy for educated youth to return home that he had heard over the loudspeaker on the day he was reborn. Then what about Wang Long and the children? Yinhua said Jinmei went back first, and then she'd arrange for Wang Long and the children to go to the city too. Whether that's true or not, nobody knows. Li Shuhe sighed. How could it be that easy? For someone who's been sent down to the countryside for more than 10 years, there might not even be a bed for her at home anymore. It's hard to find work in the city now too. They're all unemployed youths who've returned to the city. How could she possibly have the ability to bring her husband and children into the city too? Thinking of Zhao Jinmei's son and daughter, Lin Yunfang also shook her head. They might not have a mother anymore in the future. How could children without a mother avoid suffering? Li Daong also shook his head. Speaking of it, Wang Long's marksmanship is also very good, among the best on the pig driving team. Li Shuhe kept that in mind first. The next day, Li Shuhe carried a basket on his back. Inside were iron wire, hemp rope, a machete, and a small bag of corn kernels that Li Shumi had broken off for him. The wild pheasants in the mountains around here are scientifically called ring-necked pheasants, and there are actually quite a lot of them. Even after going through those times when the mountains demanded meat to eat, these astonishingly fertile and very agile pheasants were still common. In the past 2 years, grain production has increased, and fewer people go up the mountains to look for wild vegetables. Without people disturbing them, the number of wild pheasants has also begun to recover. Li Shuhe spent all day scouting yesterday, and in his special vision, for pheasant flocks appeared. Today he found a place where all the conditions were suitable. With pheasants, once soil gun pellets get into the meat, it can't be eaten anymore, and air rifles are rare, so the thing that can still catch them is the most traditional method of all, snares. Li Shuhe really did know a kind of snare. A mountain villager had taught him in his previous life, and because they had a very good relationship, he was often invited to stay for meals when he went into the mountains. And every now and then there would be pheasant soup or braised pheasant on the table. The 2 of them started talking about snaring pheasants, and the man even took out the snare to show him, teaching him bit by bit. At the time it was just a pastime. He never expected it would come in handy today. The snare structure was also very simple. Use a wooden stick to make a trigger trap, then form a slip knot with wire. Place it on the trap, and tie the other end to hemp rope fastened to a high branch. When a pheasant stepped on the wooden trigger trap, the branch bent down would instantly spring back up, and the polished wire slip knot would tighten quickly. As long as the little black-footed chicken's foot was cinched by the wire, there was no way it could run off. Li Shuhe had already figured out the entire terrain yesterday, and had also thought through how to arrange the traps. So while the pheasant flock was scratching through the snow for food, he deftly set up more than a dozen snares along the paths the pheasants were bound to take. After setting the traps, Li Shuhe did not wait nearby either, lest the pheasants' refuse to come back. Today he planned to switch directions and go scout out the situation on another mountain, while also, by the way, amicably requisitioning some nuts from the squirrels over there. Since he was going to sell the hickory nuts, he wanted to get a few more gene to sell together. But after spending most of the day at it, he did not get too many hickory nuts, and instead ended up with a whole back basket of pine nuts. The little squirrels scampered up and down, bringing over the pine cones they had hidden. Some were not very good, and Shuhe did not take those, telling them to hurry up and eat them first. Don't forget to eat, you silly squirrels. Come to think of it, squirrel pelts were worth a bit of money too. Although they were not as valuable as northeastern squirrels, whose small gray pelts could fetch dozens of yuan apiece. The squirrel fur here could still sell for a few yuan. But the moment this thought arose in his mind, dozens, even hundreds, of little squirrels scattered and fled with a whoosh. I was only thinking about it. I wasn't really going to skin you. I was even planning to have you work for me next year and help me gather things. Seeing them run off, Shuhe did not give any more commands, packed the things into the basket, and prepared to go check on the pheasant snares. 8. In this whole area, pheasants were hanging upside down from nearly every snare. Some were still flapping, while others had already lost most of their strength, so they probably had not all been caught at the same moment. Shuhe had not expected there to be so many. Although he had set more than a dozen snares, and had also observed their game trails in his special vision for a long time, to catch 8 at once still greatly exceeded expectations. Anyway, he himself had never heard of any hunter with such a record. Being too outstanding really does make people resent you. Hee. You pheasants. Your vigilance is far too poor, so take this as a lesson. Ever since Shuhe obtained beast gathering and bird taming, he had become somewhat mystically inclined. But his hands were not slow at all, holding the hemp rope. He deftly tied up the pheasant's feet, then undid the wire loops and collected the snares. The pheasants in this place had all been scared away, so he did not plan to keep setting snares here. He had to give them some time to forget these terrifying traps. The 8 pheasants were hanging upside down from the edge of the back basket. Inside it was packed full of pine cones. The joy of a harvest like this was nothing like what buying up goods in his previous life could compare to. And perhaps because he had commanded too many little squirrels, Shuhe felt that his magic had improved a little more, though it was not very obvious. These little squirrels were probably still too weak. He wondered when the day would come when Shuhe only needed a thought, and the entire mountain forest, countless birds and beasts, all bowing their heads and obeying his commands. A true king of the mountains and forests. Shuhe shook his head, cast aside this distant fantasy, hoisted the bamboo basket onto his back, and started heading home. By the time he entered the village, dusk was already settling in. Smoke curled up from the cooking fires, and every household had started making dinner, so there were hardly any people on the road to see him. It wasn't until he entered Granny Shuhe's courtyard that he ran into her carrying a dish. The lively, bouncing pheasants gave her quite a fright. What is that, pheasants? That's right. I got them up in the mountains today. Granny Shuhe looked Shuhe over several times. She'd never heard that he had this skill before. Capable, truly capable. Pheasants aren't easy to catch. They're quick and clever. Shuhe smiled and nodded. Yeah, I got lucky today. I reckon no one had been to that area, and the pheasants were dumb as anything. Have my mother cook one later, and you can have a taste too. Oh no, no need, no need. I've just eaten. Then have some tomorrow. All right, I'm heading over. While Shuhe was talking with Granny Shuhe, Lin Yunfang by the stove had already heard it all too. Not to mention the 2 little sharp-eared ones in the house, who had long since wrapped themselves tightly in their cotton jackets and came rushing out. Bro, you caught chickens? Wow, so many chickens. Shumi's eyes lit up. Are we keeping them? I can go gather grass for them. No, we're not keeping them. We'll slaughter one today, and tomorrow I'll take the rest into the city to sell. We still need to build a new house. Then let's not eat any. Sell them all, and make more money. Shuhe handed all the chickens to his mother, smiling as he said, May, you mustn't turn into a money grubber, unwilling to eat or drink properly, with your heart set only on money. That little rascal Shuping scraped his finger across his face and shouted, Money grubber, money grubber. Lin Yunfang ignored the 2 noisy little brats and looked at the pheasant in her hands. Really cooking one? She was a little reluctant. One pheasant was worth several yuan, enough to trade for dozens of jin of grain, enough for the whole family to eat their fill for half a month. Cook it. Dad still isn't back yet, right? No idea whether he asked about the bicycle for me today. He'll ask. That family is from the Wang village production team, not far from the place where your father works. Shuhe emptied everything out of the bamboo basket and spread it out. Why are they selling the bike? Sigh, they bought the bike when they got married, as one of the 3 turns in one sound, you know, and they were quite a well-off family too. But the wife was left with an illness after giving birth, and it still hasn't gotten better. They've spent a huge amount of money. Still, that family is decent. They're preparing to scrape together another sum to take her to the provincial capital for treatment. And if she can be cured, great. If not, then that's just how it is. Oh, so your dad doesn't want to force the price down either. If it's suitable, he'll buy it from them. Li Shuhe nodded to show he understood. When someone urgently needs money, it's the right time to haggle the price down, but it's also heartless. Whether it was Li Daong or Li Shuhe, neither of them could do that. In all the surrounding villages, who doesn't know who? If they really did something like that, they'd lose all face. And this time it wouldn't be the old Li family's face they were losing, but their own. That wouldn't do at all. Better let Dad be a bit more generous. Even if we lose a little, we can count it as visiting the sick. When he gets back, you tell him that. Lin Yunfang's eyes were fixed entirely on the 8 pheasants, and after hesitating a moment, she thought of the mixed flour Li Shuhe had bought, which was still enough to eat. She gritted her teeth, picked out the scrawniest one, and sentenced it to death. Although it had been a long time since she'd killed a chicken, Lin Yunfang's hands were still deft. There was already hot water in the pot, and with one clean stroke, in no time at all, a pheasant had been turned into chopped pieces. Pheasant meat is fairly firm, and if stir-fried it's easy to end up too tough to chew, so it's best suited for soup, though that also takes time. Lin Yunfang put the pheasant on the stove, then went to dig 2 winter bamboo shoots out of the sand, planning to put them all in together. She had originally wanted to add some dried wood ear mushrooms, dried mushrooms, and the like. The family used to gather some too, but unfortunately none of them came their way when the family split up. Li Daong simply never thought of such things. He could only remember the grain rations. Now that the family had split, if Lin Yunfang wanted to pry anything out of old Granny Li's hands, that would be far too difficult. So she simply stopped asking. With the winter bamboo shoots added to the water, the large pot was filled to the brim. It looked like it might not be fully stewed by dinner time tonight. But when it was time to eat, Lin Yunfang still picked out a few thinner pieces of meat and set a bowl of chicken soup on the table. The soup really did taste wonderfully fresh, and paired with the crisp winter bamboo shoots, it was freshness upon freshness. Even someone reborn like Li Shuhe, who had eaten good things before, found his appetite greatly whetted. After all, this was from before local industrialization. Genuine green wild game. The whole family drank the soup with great gusto. Only after Li Daong put down his chopsticks did he bring up the bicycle. It's settled, 120 yuan. That bike is quite new, a forever brand one. A brand new one would cost 180 yuan. No problem, I'll give you the money later. Bicycles in those days were different from those in later generations, even second-hand ones were hot commodities. For people without a bicycle coupon, second-hand was the only available option. And this was a brand like Forever, sturdy enough that one bicycle could see off 2 generations. I don't know how to ride a bike, so come with me early tomorrow morning. When the time comes, after you pay, just ride the bike back directly. That works too. At the thought of riding a bicycle in the bitter cold of midwinter, Li Shuhe felt a little intimidated too. Mom, you have to get me a new pair of gloves and a hat. Otherwise I won't be able to stand the wind while riding. Oh dear, why didn't you say so earlier? I'll unravel an old sweater for you. Lin Yunfang quickly put down what she was doing and went to rummage through the cupboard for an old sweater. Most of them from when Li Shuhe and the others were little. Some had been unraveled to knit sweaters for the younger children, and the others were piled at the bottom of the cupboard. But most of the ones left had rotted away. After rummaging for a while, Lin Yunfang pulled out 2 tattered little sweaters. Why don't you just go buy one in town instead? Rotten yarn won't block the wind either. Just go buy a leather one, the kind that covers the ears, and get a pair of gloves and a scarf too. You're always buying this and that for the family, so get yourself a few things as well. A full sheepskin set would cost nearly 20 yuan, which was a large sum for village people. Li Shuhe thought for a moment. That works. Tomorrow I'll go look around the market. Leather or cotton, we'll see then. Early the next morning, Li Shuhe sleepily crawled out of bed, preparing to go to work with Li Daong. In the 2 rooms they rented, Li Daong and his wife slept in one room, and Li Shumi slept there with them on a small cot. As for Li Shuping, he shared a bed with his second brother. Because he had drunk soup that night, Li Shuhe hadn't slept soundly. He was worried his little brother might wet the bed and end up sailing in his sleep all the way to Westlake. Fortunately, in the middle of the night, he urged him to use the chamber pot once. Otherwise, that long pee probably would have ended in a flood worthy of the Golden Mountain. In the dead of winter, that would have been miserable. In the morning, they still had chicken soup. The chicken was already stewed till tender and paired with freshly made steamed buns. It really tasted good, and after eating, his whole body warmed up. Once you buy the bike, come back. I don't think these chickens look too lively, so hurry and take them into town to sell for peace of mind. Lin Yunfang reminded him. Got it. The village where Li Daong worked was actually not far away. Otherwise, he couldn't have walked there and back. If it were farther, he would have had to take a job that included room and board. Braving the biting winter wind, the two of them walked for more than half an hour and finally entered the village. Since things had already been arranged yesterday, Li Daong didn't go to the employer's house and instead took Li Shuhe straight to the home of the person selling the bicycle. The one who opened the door was a rather weathered-looking man, though he didn't seem very old. "Ah, Master Li is here, come in. Brother Haijun, this is my boy." The Li father and son went inside and first took out 2 yuan, which was also one of their customs. When visiting a household with a sick person, you had to give a medical red envelope, though it wasn't mandatory. But being a bit particular about it didn't hurt. Zhou Haijun indeed didn't refuse and accepted it right away, then took them to look at the bicycle. It really was quite new, with the Yongzhou metal badge still gleaming brightly. Li Shuhe got on and rode 2 laps, almost getting chilled through by the wind. "Fine, no problem." After inspecting the bike, Li Shuhe very straightforwardly took out the money. The 120 yuan had been kept in his inner pocket, and it was still warm when he took it out. After Zhou Haijun finished counting it, he nodded. "That's right, then you can ride the bike away." There was still some reluctance in his tone. A bicycle counted as a major household item. And when a family starts selling off major belongings, it really means they're going downhill, and no one feels good about it. The Li father and son didn't stay long either, exchanged a couple polite words, and went out. Li Shuhe turned back and glanced at the Zhou family's house. This house is pretty impressive. What does his family do? It's a new house, and they've got the 3 big items and 1 sound too. They're not ordinary farmers, are they? Li Daong made a downward cutting gesture with his hand. Zhou Haijun and his father are both barefoot veterinarians. They make quite a bit every year just from castrating pigs. Li Shuhe suddenly understood. This was one of the most important skilled trades in the countryside, with a lot of status. Even in the collective era, they could earn extra money. Whether for the production team or at home, raising a pig was no easy matter, and if a pig got sick, people got more anxious than when they themselves got sick. Not to mention cattle and sheep too. The old Zhou family really could make money. So that's why people say, better anything than illness. Otherwise, with the skills of that father and son, would they have fallen to the point of selling their bike? But his family is pretty decent. It's only been less than 2 years since they got married, and they're willing to spend the family fortune treating the wife. Everyone says they're honest and kind. After saying a couple more words, they reached the fork in the village. Li Shuhe got on the bicycle, shouted once, and shot off like a gust of wind. Although it was cold, it looked so cool. Watching his spirited son, Li Daong felt much more relieved too. Ever since the family split up, life at home really had gotten much better, and the children looked more like proper people too. When a tree grows big, its branches split. Shaking his head, Li Daong headed toward the employer's place. Once he finished this job, he'd make about 30 yuan, not as much as his son, but still not bad. When building a new house, they couldn't really rely only on Li Shuhe. He had to keep himself on his toes too. Li Shuhe sped all the way like the wind. His stomach nearly jolted out of him. The village road was rideable, but the road conditions certainly weren't great. The only good thing was that the road was fairly flat, with few slopes. Heading home at this hour, he happened to run into people going out, like 4th Uncle Li, holding a rice bowl, showing off outside in the dead of winter. The steaming hot corn mush in the bowl, once blown by the cold wind, became just the right temperature to eat. "Shuhe?" Li Shuhe put 1 foot down. "Little uncle, having breakfast?" Li Dai couldn't hear anything else at all. He stared at Li Shuhe's almost new Yongzhou 28-inch bicycle, his eyes nearly shining. For a village loafer like him, if he could have a bicycle, he would practically be a hoodlum candidate with the speed of the wind. "Where'd you get that bike?" "It's pretty new, huh?" "Bought it. What else stole it?" "Bought it." "Fishing is really that profitable?" Li Shuhe laughed. "It is. Quite a few people are chiseling through the ice at the river beach these days. Little uncle, why don't you give it a try too?" Li Dai was a little tempted, but asking him to go catch fish in the dead of winter, ending up soaked all over, he didn't dare imagine how hard that would be. Better to just bum a ride on his nephew's bike. "Shuhe, let me ride it for a bit." "No, we've split the family now. We're 2 separate households. How could something this expensive be lent to an outsider?" Li Shuhe lifted his foot, stepped on the pedal, and said, "I'm off, little uncle." "Hey, you." Li Dai felt that today's corn gruel was even worse than yesterday's, and the pickles were far too salty. Damn it, her pickling skills are just no good. After watching Li Shuhe leave, he spat and went home. "What's with you, looking so down first thing in the morning? A debt collector or something?" As soon as old Madame Li saw the way he was all sour-faced, she couldn't help but start cursing.